Every once in a while in sports, you're going to get your teeth knocked in. It just seems that for the Seattle Kraken, it happens more often than it should.
You are Locked On Kraken, your daily podcast on the Seattle Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what do you say, Seattle hockey fans? Welcome to another episode of Locked On Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Your team is the Seattle Kraken, and they are coming off another brutal loss in St. Louis. I just wanted everyone who needed a little bit of a revenge game against Canada to be able to root for the Kraken. I guess karma for the United States continued as the Seattle Kraken falls 7-2. This wasn't a great game. There's really no other way to put it. The Seattle Kraken, between their coach and Jared McCann, who we'll hear from, felt they didn't have their legs. I'm not really sure why. They were on a road trip, but it was a split road trip. Did have a back-to-back in Florida, so we can take that into consideration. Joey Decord got pulled, so bright spot, we did get the debut of Nike Coco, and we'll talk about that a little bit. This was just a pretty disappointing performance. There's really no other way to put it. The Seattle Kraken in this game were outshot 14-4 in the first period. So you want to talk about not having your legs. You want to talk about definitely not starting on time. The shots on goal total did even out, 27 per side, but 27 shots for 7 goals for the Blues, 27 shots, 2 goals for the Seattle Kraken. The Kraken did outshoot St. Louis 9-2 in the third frame. At that point, though, St. Louis had control of the game. We'll talk about that. It didn't take long to control the game. But in this first section, I want to play some clips and read some things, because Jordan Eberle also joined the television broadcast, and the post game had an interesting, I thought it was interesting, kind of analysis on what he had to say. But let's start with Brandon Montour, what he had to say after this loss.
Well, Monty, obviously not the outcome or the start that you wanted. What do you think were the ingredients to this game not starting and going your way?
A more desperate team, a team that's, still close with us in standings, but a few points, closer to being in the playoffs. A team that, obviously wanted it more. A desperate team that showed it, competed harder than us all game, and, the effort level on their side was there and wasn't on our side, and kind of, trickled throughout the whole entire game.
When you see some of kind of the disconnected play and it looks like guys aren't really supporting each other out there in moments in this game, what do you think is at the root of that?
Again, awareness, being ready to play, but, you could look down at all the goals, guys wide open, backdoor plays, players losing their man, just, the compete level, the effort, you could say, the effort was there, but, again, battling, moving our feet, D-zone offense. They were all over us all night, and they got moving. We were getting stuck in an area, and they were finding guys backdoor. Tough for both goalies to kind of get going and helping them in any way. But that's just a desperate, more desperate hockey team.
How do you kind of hope that you guys can maybe take this feeling and learn from it? What can you kind of do to bounce back from it and use this to fuel you?
Again, I think it's one thing that I think everyone in this locker room should know what the mistakes were. You can't always rely on our goalies to make big saves. You got to be ready. That goes for defense, forwards in the D zone, O zone, helping each other. We're connected at all, and again, this time of year, you're going to get every team's best because this is when you got to play your best hockey, and I think we got to start learning, finding ways to find our best hockey as well.
I mean, Monty said a lot there, including that this was a St. Louis team just more desperate to win. Talked about how they're both fighting for a wild card spot. St. Louis, as we've talked about in the last several episodes, a little bit ahead. But, now St. Louis sits with 60 points. They trail Colorado and Vancouver. 70 points for Colorado, 65 points for Vancouver. But St. Louis at 60 points. Just ahead of them is the Utah Hockey Club with 61 points and the Calgary Flames at 64. The Seattle Kraken are at 54 points on the season, and we are behind the Anaheim Ducks. We'll talk about the Predators later this week. We're ahead of the Nashville Predators, the Chicago hockey team, and the San Jose Sharks. This is not where this team wanted to be, considering they added a player like Brandon Montour. They added Chandler Stevenson. And I want to talk about some hockey visualizations. We'll talk some on today's episode and some throughout the week because the Kraken have a little bit of a break here. But the effort level. I for those not watching my face on YouTube, I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to understand here because the team is saying a lot of the same things after every loss. And like I said, it's you're gonna get your teeth knocked in, kicked in every once in a while in sports, in life, right? It's a matter of learning the lessons. And I just am having a difficult time. I'm having a difficult time seeing what lessons have been learned, what accountability is in place here with the Seattle Kraken team. I mean, this is a team that says they're not a rebuild. It's just about a refocus. But the focus, if you can't focus on winning games and getting into that desperation mode, as we heard Brandon Montour say, what is happening with this team? I just, because this has been a lunch pail team, right? We've talked about how this is a lunch pail team, and they've forgotten their lunch a lot this season. They've forgotten their lunch a lot. And it's endlessly frustrating. It's endlessly frustrating. We're going to hear from Jared McCann, go over some stats, and then try to look ahead. Yes, in the next handful of days, but what is the reality of this team? Is it realistic that anything will change this season? And if it's not, what is the front office going to do to course correct here? We'll talk about that on today's episode of Locked On Kraken. Today's episode of Locked On Kraken brought to you by our friends at Indeed. You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed's sponsored jobs puts your post at the top of the page and helps you reach the right candidates faster. And, hiring the right people quickly saves you so much time. And, if you're able to utilize a platform like Indeed, where you're doing less hiring overall, but more hiring of the right people, the right candidates at the right time, then that's going to benefit your business. And now you can speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, you need. Hiring, Indeed, is all you need. Thanks as always for making Locked On Kraken a part of your daily destination. Coming in a little bit later than usual, but we're here. We are here to talk about this hockey team. I mean, that was a brutal loss in St. Louis, and there's really no mincing words. We're going to hear from Jared McCann in a little bit, but we also heard from the captain and Jordan Eberle saying we didn't execute. We hung Joey out to dry. It's frustrating. I think it was just a lack of compete, really. I saw a lot of missed battles, missed communication. Frustration builds up, and then things go south. And on the broadcast, I thought it was interesting that the guys kind of were like, oh, only your captain can say that. Maybe they meant publicly, I don't know, but all of these things, are we surprised? Like, I don't think it should be like, oh, the captain said this, so now you know it's real. First of all, Eberle has been out of the lineup. To what end he's saying some of these things to the guys or not, I don't think we know, right? Because he's not obligated to do media when he's injured and recovering. The second thing is missed battles, missed communication, lack of compete. Maybe not as bluntly, but I feel like we've been hearing this from the Seattle Kraken. We've been hearing this from the players. They understand that this is happening. And some of these things are not, I don't think, are not difficult to imagine when we watch this team. How many times have I talked about communication, battles? I said, get in the body, the leaning, while you were sleeping style, lean into. Oh my goodness. We continue to just find ourselves on the back foot. Even, I believe it was the first goal against, Matty Beniers is trying to defend, but he got shielded and was on the outside. And that didn't matter for Kairu's first goal. I think it was that Kairu goal. It was really a beautiful shot. Hit the post and then kind of just like bing, bing, bing. It was really beautiful. I don't think that mattered for the Kairu goal, or at least that particular goal. But it's one of those things, had there been a tip opportunity, if you are in front of the guy, in between the player and the shot coming in, you have a better chance of disrupting that than trailing behind them with their body in front of you, and direct access to the player with the puck. So, I mean, these are things, I mean, of course he should say these things because they're true. They're true. But he wasn't the only one. Here's what Jared McCann had to say after the game.
Well, Jared, what was your team struggling with tonight in this one?
Take your pick. Pretty much everything. D-zone coverage. Couldn't get a forecheck established. Made it easy on them. It just looked like we didn't have our legs tonight, and it's just overall pretty embarrassing.
When you have a situation where Joey goes out in exchange for a young 20-year-old goaltender, does that give you maybe just a boost in your pride or a willingness to defend?
It should. You got to play for the logo on the front, right? It's an honor to be obviously in the NHL, and there's a lot of other kids and other guys in this league who are chomping at the bit to get into play here. So we got to take a long look in the mirror and figure out our everything.
Obviously not an ideal circumstance for Coco, but were you able to take note of how he responded, what he stood out to you for him?
Yeah, it was good. He battled for us, and obviously made some big saves, and obviously could have got out of hand again. So,
what do you think goes into the difference in those two versus tonight?
I just think we had our legs. We were able to establish a forecheck. We didn't play. We played North hockey. I know it sounds cliche, but that's the way we're built. We got to do that. So, it's tough.
I mean, again, you hear Jad McCann saying they didn't have their legs. And again, they had a back-to-back. So that's not hard to imagine. Sometimes you get your teeth kicked in. Okay with that. What's not okay is that when the team isn't on a back-to-back, when they aren't dealing with injury, the inconsistency, the lack of what feels like just quite honestly showing up is too prevalent with this team. In the last 10 games, from a defensive perspective, the Seattle Kraken have allowed 4 or more goals in 5 of their last 10 games. Going back to the Oilers, a 4-2 loss. The Ducks, a 6-4 loss. The Red Wings, a 5-4 loss. Tampa Bay, 4-1 loss. And then, of course, St. Louis, a 7-2 loss. And the opportunities that the Seattle Kraken are giving up is not matching what they're able to do offensively. And one of our insiders pointed me to the hockeyviz.com site and just some of the issues that we're seeing prevalent with this team. And so I want to show you some of that or recap some of this. These are going to be heat maps, so I'll do my best for those listening on audio, but check out Hockey Viz, and there's some others charts that I want to dive into when it comes to defense. But the Seattle Kraken, if we look at the red blotches here, the red blotches indicate where the Seattle Kraken on offense, this is Seattle Kraken 5-on-5 offense, where they are respective to their goal. So they're shooting towards the goal at the top here, where they're shooting above the NHL average, which are the red blotches, below the NHL average, which are the blue blotches, including those big old blotches right in front of the net. And then the white space is where the Seattle Kraken are considered to be shooting at NHL average. So if we're looking at this and the Seattle Kraken are shooting towards their net, again, what we're seeing is that the Seattle Kraken, their heat map effectively shows that at the right point in particular, so just tucked into that blue line, if you're looking at this, that right side wall is where the Seattle Kraken are getting their most shots. But that's very deep. That is, I mean, it's the heat map is what, a few strides within that blue line on the right side and almost at the blue line on the left-hand side. So shooting in from the point, as this post on Blue Sky says, it does not appear that the point shot strategy is working for Seattle. But what I also find endlessly frustrating on this graphic is that if you see the blue blotches, which is where the Seattle Kraken are shooting below NHL average, where is that? The slot, below the dots, in front of net. There's no net front presence. At least it's below average in the National Hockey League. And this is a team that needs to convert and create offense, and they're not doing it right now. Some other ones that Mike McCurdy posted, the PK defense, same thing. Above average in this diagram is this brown color. And you can see, I mean, where are the Seattle Kraken not allowing shots above average? It's quite, it looks like it's everything. This is a massive, it's like someone spilled their coffee on this data visualization. And what about where are they shooting on the power play? So now in this case, the purple dot, big old purple dot right in front of the net, we're like, okay, great. Except no, purple indicates below average. We are extremely below average shooting right in front of the net, which supports what I was just saying in the other data visualization. This is just one of several things, as we heard, Jared McCann saying, take your pick one of several things. And the defense for the Seattle Kraken, oh my goodness. I take no pride at this point. I am not relishing in the fact that I have told you that this team is not great defensively. And for whatever advanced analytics and whatnot, the habits are even worse. They're even worse this year. And that is just really unacceptable. There's something going on with this team, and it hasn't been figured out. And if this isn't a rebuild, then some decisions have to be made. And they haven't been made to this point in the season. Maybe you point to injuries, but there's always injuries in hockey. I just don't understand what it's going to take for this Kraken team to, as the skaters, respond and react to games like this. But as a front office, you need more Ryan Donato. We need more Ryan Donatos on this team. I mean, I'd love to have Ryan Donato back, but I mean, Ryan Donato could find you a goal most of the time right in front of the net, and he had the right energy. He had the right attitude. And I do think that these are guys that are nice guys for the most part. I mean, I don't know. I don't know that they're out here like, let's sabotage this season. And sometimes if you're too nice, too polite, you don't want to shake the boat, you can have difficult conversations, but are you going to do what it takes, which sometimes means ruffling some feathers, breaking a few eggs? Are you going to do what it takes to really get this team going? And I think you have to include the coaching staff in that as well. So again, a little bit of everything. Take your pick. Where does the Seattle Kraken, where does this franchise need to push buttons? I think they got to push them all. And we have run out of time in this season. So what does that mean? What's next? And we'll talk about that a little bit coming up on today's episode. So we'll take a little break from the doom and the gloom of this because it's a lot. It's real, but it is a lot. I just want to give you the stats for Coco here. You know, he faced He faced 6 shots in his almost 30 minutes of action. He was able to save 4 of those shots. He was able to save 4, let 2 by, all even strength goals against. But as Eberle said, I think it was that second goal in particular, Coco coming out to make a save, nobody, and I mean nobody, like Keith Sweat, nobody style, nobody even close to help on the back door. Joey Decord, one of his final goals against, same thing, trying to do a desperation reach with the stick. I will say Joey, I think at least 2 of those goals looked like he might want those back. It was tough with, I think, one of the so many goals. It was maybe the 4th goal or so, and the angle that I saw on the replay, I couldn't really tell if there was a screen, but the St. Louis Blues just had their way. I know I said I'd get away from the doom and gloom, but Coco getting his first NHL action. Dan Bilesma saying it's not the way we planned it, but sometimes I think your first taste in the NHL is a little bit better when it's by surprise. It was a time Coco didn't have to think about a start. He got tossed in there. His first save was a great one, and he was a young goalie doing a good job out there. And I think that's it. This was a St. Louis Blues team that just had the Seattle Kraken's number. So, okay. Just wanted to round that out with some of the analysis from the game. Looking ahead, Immediately looking ahead, I mean, I already talked to you about the standings, but the Seattle Kraken will have some time off. They'll have some time off. They play again on Saturday. They'll be home, and they're taking on the Vancouver Canucks. We have not fared well in the season, let alone in divisional play. But if you look at the standings right now, the Vancouver Canucks, they sit in that 4th spot in the Pacific Division, 5 points behind LA, who's in 3rd. LA's 2 points behind Edmonton, Edmonton 2 points behind Vegas. So we've got our 3 leaders more or less the same from what it's been the last handful of seasons. The Seattle Kraken are just ahead of, again, not just, but only, I should say, ahead of San Jose when it comes to points. They have San Jose, that is, has 38 points. The Seattle Kraken 54. We're chasing Anaheim with 57, and we're 10 points behind Calgary. So, this is a team. This is a team that just something has to happen. They're going to be sellers. They should be sellers, right, at the trade deadline. I just don't know how you keep this core together. Well, the core is established, I guess I should say. The 7-7 deals, as I like to say, Brandon Montour, Chandler Stevenson. We're going to talk about him later in the week. We extended Joey Decord, Matty Beniers, Adam Larson. Vince Dunn is in the middle of I guess he got extended last year. So the pieces that need to move, I'm not convinced all of those pieces are quote unquote the problem pieces. We have seen players like Bjorkstrand, Ty Cartier. I think, I want to talk about him a little bit later in the next coming days, I should say. A little bit of a down year. But, I mean, Brandon Tanev has been on the trade rumor mill all season, and he had probably the best individual effort on that play, which unfortunately, because he had to leave the ice and because he sacrificed the body, the Seattle Kraken were down a skater, and the St. Louis Blues absolutely took advantage of that, as they should. But Brandon Tanev is a player that gives what is needed, what is required. Game in, game out. Yanni Gourde, the same thing. Oliver Bjorkstrand, I think for the most part, does that. And these are the guys that end up in the trade conversations when the team's not doing well. And I'm not convinced that they're the problem. I don't think they're the problem for the most part. So what is it going to take if the core is Matty Beniers, Shane Wright? Matty Beniers extended also. Matty Beniers, Shane Wright, Chandler Stevenson, Brandon Montour, Vince Dunn, Adam Larson also extended. Not all of those guys are the issue either. I think if we look at the stats, some of those guys still trying to figure it out, aka Stevenson. We'll talk about that. I just, something's got to give here. And that's where I have to look at the coaching staff. I don't think we're going to make another coaching change after this season. I suppose it's possible. Is this a coaching issue? I think some of it, unfortunately, for the coaching staff, you're going to have to wonder what's going on here. What's going on with special teams? What's going on with the leadership of this team? Sure, Eberle was away from the ice, but there's plenty of other leaders on this team. What's going on? How is this team prepared for battle? What is the focus on the mental? Because this seems just like a will issue. A will comes down to what you're gonna do, what you're literally willing to do. And I don't know that we have that answer from the Seattle Kraken. You have to shed fear. You have to shed any reservations that you have. You have to put your ego to the side. I don't know exactly what the particular inconsistency cocktail that the Seattle Kraken that they're drinking, what is it made of? But some of it has to be, I mean, we've heard it from the players, right? Some of it is communication. You got to talk to your team. That's, it's one of those things that's maybe not explicitly in the job description, but it's pretty, you need to talk to your team. You need to support your team. If you have an attitude, well, not my mark, not my area, not my position, you're probably going to lose games. This isn't a factory. This isn't a production line. This isn't a project management, mark off your task. Sure, you need to be responsible for your task, but things happen. Assignments are blown. Guys get beat. That's the next skater up. And for the team to self-identify that that's not happening, how do you reward that type of behavior? And my hope is that, I'll say it this way, I want to end the show here. I would lose every game this season. I'd be okay with it if there was some fight on this team. I'm not seeing the fight. I'm not seeing as Jared McCann said, playing for the name on the front of your jersey. And I might not be able to identify all of the players who I think are not doing that, just watching the games, listening to what they say. But I have to imagine that the players know. I have to imagine that the coaches know. But more importantly, I have to imagine that the front office, if they can't see it, they're getting reports. I think they should be asking, touching base. And that's where I want to have a conversation, because what will the Seattle Kraken players say if we were to ask them each individually, do you still believe in this team? What are these guys saying? What would they say if they were asked that? And how does that compare to what their game is saying? I want to talk about that. I really want to talk about that. Tough loss is an understatement. The Seattle Kraken will head back home, maybe get some home cooking, sleep in their bed. They gotta get their legs back. That's for dang sure. Hey, be kind to yourselves, be kind to one another. And we still gotta hold fast, stay true. And as always, loud and proud, say, let's go Kraken. I will catch you on the next episode. Peace out, everybody. Don't forget to subscribe. Watch the next video and come back for more tomorrow.